Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis from Virginia. He is a military expert. He's also the host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. We reported as early as Friday that it seems the United States is trying to negotiate with the Israelis to slow down this ground offensive in hope of releasing more hostages. However, Israel has been firm in saying that they're preparing for the long haul. What do you make of these comments?
I don't think the United States is going to be the only entity that's arguing for a slowdown in the ground invasion. I bet the families of every single one of the Israeli hostages are saying the same thing to the government. I actually know that that's the case. And you can certainly understand why, because if the IDF goes in heavy and they literally just start annihilating everything in front of them on the ground, which any ground incursion is going to likely do, then the chances of those hostages being killed is very high. So, of course, the family members are saying, hey, don't rush into this. Let's make sure we get our, family members back. Let's try to get some hostages negotiated and returned before you go in and do any of that kind of sting. And, of course, I think that it was a very tactical move on Hamas's part to let that one mother-daughter American pair be released, because that gave hope to all the rest of them. And I'm sure that their intent partially was, and maybe even wholly, was to put pressure on the Israeli government not to go in with their attack, so that people would say, look, if you just hold on, maybe more will come. So I'm sure that was the purpose of it. And in fact, that's why Hamas took so many hostages and no doubt has them scattered throughout the Gaza Strip where they can't be found or make it very difficult to be found, because they want to slow down that incursion. And if Israel goes ahead and goes through with it, then, of course, they'll be probably, being this brutal as they are, they'll probably show video that says, look, the hostages were killed by the Israeli Defense Forces. So it is a huge risk for Israel, and it's an excruciating challenge for them to have to figure out, how do we protect the hostages? How do we take care of people, but also go in and conduct this operation and not suffer this big humanitarian problem and a problem to maintain the global support that they have across much of the West, in that if they go in and are seen to not care about either the Palestinians or their own hostages, they could lose support abroad, and that could be crucial for Israel.
How do you balance something like that, considering the fact that, Hamas is spread out between the civilian population and, it's at times very difficult to make sure that even this aid is getting to the civilians?
Yeah, look, there's one thing that we have to understand right from the beginning, and what I just said about the difficult for the military operation is applicable as well. This is a horrible situation. There are no good answers. There are no good options. It's just, which of the bad options are you going to choose? Because Israel is faced in this particular case with, do we let in a large amount of food supplies and relief supplies so that these millions of Palestinian innocent civilians don't starve to death or die of thirst or get sick with diphtheria and who knows what all other kind of diseases because they have lost running water? Or do they risk giving them this stuff and then it being diverted to maintain the Hamas fighters whom they want to weaken? And the problem is, there's no solution to it. You're either going to say no supplies are going to go in and the people are going to starve along with the Hamas fighters, or you're going to let food in so that the civilians are able to maintain, they are able to live. But for sure that some of that aid is going to be diverted to Hamas. There's no possibility. There's no mechanism to prevent it from going to Hamas. So unfortunately, I think that's just the cost of doing business. I think Israel's just going to have to understand that some of the food will go to their enemies. But, if that's the cost to keeping innocent civilians alive, it's a price they're going to have to pay, I'm afraid.